Whoever follows a path in pursuit of knowledge, God will make easy for him a path to paradise. No people gather in one of the houses of God, reciting the book of God and teaching it to one another, but the angels will surround them, tranquility will descend upon them, and mercy will envelop them. Chapter 8. Educational Reforms. Introduction. Hadrat Sahib began his educational reforms in the Sainsa region by setting up a small mosque and madrasa. He made a conscious decision to make mosques the focal point of his educational pursuits. His educational mission was based on the example of the Prophet, as he used the mosque as the basis for his educational activities. The primary aim was to educate the local children and provide a platform for the older Sangis to learn about basic tenets of their faith. Hadrat Sahib did not permanently stay in this area, but he continuously supervised the educational activities in the mosque. Gradually, due to Hadrat Sahib's gentle persuasion, some local people began to take an interest in religious education. The Pioneers. An old Sangi named Ali Baksh was a blacksmith, had trained his son, Muhammad Hassan, who died in 2010, to learn the same trade. Hadrat Sahib convinced Ali Baksh to send his son, Muhammad Hassan, to a religious institution near Mirpur. This was a great sacrifice on Ali Baksh's part, as there was no financial gain in sending his son to a madrasa. In fact, he was deprived of a helping hand at home, but Ali Baksh did this only on the advice and recommendation of Hadrat Sahib. The dire situation of the madrasa was such that students had to go to nearby villages to beg for food. Hence it was difficult to be a religious student in those days. Despite all these hardships, Muhammad Hassan completed his studies in the mid-1950s. Muhammad Hassan once recalled, "One day, Hadrat Sahib went past our village alone on foot, and I accompanied him out of respect. When he reached the village where he would stay, he allowed me to return and advised me to lead the Eid prayer in our area. Such an activity had never taken place in our backward area, and even I had not led the Eid prayer before. Hadrat Sahib explained to me in detail and instructed me to inform the local people about the Eid prayer. At the centre of Hadrat Sahib's spiritual path is a balance between Sharia and mysticism. As a guide, he was steadfast on his spiritual mission from God and resolute in ensuring that he taught people Islamic jurisprudence along with the necessary practices the religion commands. He maintained this balance and in doing so instilled in people the adherence to prophetic traditions on the spiritual path. Another Sangi, Maulvi Amir Ali, was a learned and pious person. He took his 10-year-old son, Fadal Karim, born in 1942, and requested Hadrat Sahib to enroll him in the madrasa. After being enrolled in the madrasa, Fadal Karim was initiated by Hadrat Sahib onto his spiritual path in the presence of his father. Speaking to Fadal Karim's father, Hadrat Sahib said, "Maulvi Sahib, do we have your permission to teach your son the name of God?" During the same period, another Sangi, who was a farmer, had a particularly poor harvest. To support his family, he decided to send his teenage son, Ghulam Hussain, to work in a mill in Jhelum, Pakistan. On their way to Jhelum, they visited Hadrat Sahib in Chechen Sharif to seek his permission to travel to Jhelum for this cause. After a 3-day stay with Hadrat Sahib, the poor Sangi was given some money by Hadrat Sahib and advised to buy some grain and return home. However, there was a condition. Hadrat Sahib advised him to leave his son in Chechen Sharif. Ghulam Hussain stayed with Hadrat Sahib's family and began to study the Holy Quran with Fakir Muhammad Potiya, and after a 10-week stay he was sent back home. The following day he went to pay his respects to Hadrat Sahib, who was staying in a nearby mosque. Hadrat Sahib instructed him, saying, "As long as you are here, attend the classes in the local mosque. This meant that as long as he was alive, Ghulam Hussain should continually gain and impart knowledge in the mosque. He was a bright student, and as time went on, he was quickly promoted to the post of an assistant teacher. Young talents like Muhammad Hassan, Ghulam Hussain and Fadl Karim were an excellent example of Hadrat Sahib's mission to encourage people to educate their children. Gradually, people began to understand the importance of education and requested Hadrat Sahib to enroll their children too. Reforming the Kotli religion. Kotli, the largest district of Azad Kashmir in Pakistan, is about 90 kilometres from Kashmir's central city, Mirpur. Kotli's geographical setting in modern terms is roughly a 3-hour drive from Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. The name Kotli itself means flat land surrounded by mountains. The journey to Kotli is quite a breathtaking experience, winding through Kashmir's mountain ranges to the crossing of the main river Punch, which cradles the city and surrounding areas. A viewing point at the north of the city, known as Sada View, gives a complete picture of the Kotli Basin. Before Hadrat Sahib's reformation of the region, it was massively undeveloped at the time. It was an area which Hadrat Sahib had visited since he was 5 years old. The transport and roads were in poor condition, and the illiteracy rate was very high. Apart from farming, there was little prospect of having a decent livelihood. Despite all the economic and educational setbacks, some of these people possessed qualities that endeared them to Hadrat Sahib, particularly sincerity. Hadrat Sahib did not give any importance to wealth and social status, but always valued sincerity. Perhaps it was due to this reason that he chose to devote his energy to the region of Kotli. In addition to poverty, this area lacked religious education. There were few mosques and many small shrines in the city, but there were hardly any religious institutions for children. Only a handful of people knew the basics of the faith. Having established a successful madrasa in Sainsa during the late 1950s, Hadrat Sahib now carefully observed the situation of the Sangis and the masses in the Kotli region. He concluded that education was top priority. His first and foremost concern was to educate parents and encourage them to take their children to the mosques, madrasas and schools. This was no small feat, as most people in the Mirpur Kotli area were illiterate, farmers who needed their children to carry out household chores and learn their respective trades. For example, a young boy was severely beaten by his father for neglecting his farming duties because he was attending school. The choice for the farmers was simple. Farming was central to their livelihood, and attending school endangered that. Hadrat Sahib occasionally stayed in a local mosque and travelled on foot to meet the Sangis in the locality. The female Sangis would bring chapatis and a salted yogurt drink to the mosque. All of this was done without any instructions from Hadrat Sahib, as he knew that the Sangis were poor farmers and he did not want to burden anyone. The female Sangis were so sincere that they would gladly do these extra chores out of pure devotion to Hadrat Sahib. They were extraordinarily generous because even with so little, they shared whatever they had. Hadrat Sahib knew the poor circumstances of the Sangis. If he was to bless someone's home with his presence, he was considerate. Only 1 or 2 Sangis would accompany him. Moreover, wherever he went, Hadrat Sahib never wanted to be a burden on anyone. If the host tried to cook something extravagant, Hadrat Sahib would insist, "Bring whatever you make for yourself, and do not go to any trouble for our sake." The headquarters. The area where Hadrat Sahib chose to build a small mosque has a long history. When Hadrat Sahib's father travelled to this area in the 1920s and 1930s, he once visited a spring at the bottom of the village known as Agar. After drinking the water from the spring, he commented, "This water is pure." Following this, Hadrat Sahib visited the area due to its connection with his Blessed Father. Gradually, a platform was built on the cliff over the spring. In 1955, a small mosque was built and Muhammad Hassan was appointed as the Imam. Muhammad Hassan led the prayers and taught the Holy Quran to both the young and old Sangis. In February 1956, he started to teach a group of students to memorize the Holy Quran, and by 1959, the first student had learnt the entire Holy Quran. Apart from his teaching duties, Muhammad Hassan was also responsible for taking care of the guests to the mosque. Due to his sincere efforts and that of his students, parents began to take an interest in their children's education. Both Sangis and non-Sangis alike requested Hadrat Sahib to accept their sons in a religious school. Years of hard work and dedication by Hadrat Sahib and the Sangis began to bear their fruits. Mosque Committee. In 1960, Hadrat Sahib formed a management committee to oversee the affairs of the mosque mentioned above. The secretary sent regular minutes from the meetings to Hadrat Sahib, who was kept informed of all developments. The enrolment of the students was free, and local teenagers such as Gul Hassan were keen to join the madrasa. First Sayyid student. Sayyid Gul Hassan belonged to a noble, religious but destitute family in Kotli. The term Sayyid that precedes his name is an honorific title denoting any male who is a descendant of our Prophet. Naturally, any female from the same noble lineage adopts the prefix Sayyida. With his father being a pious and learned person, 17-year-old Gul Hassan was keen to study Islam. However, his elder brother was already studying in the Punjab. Thus his elderly mother needed him to carry out household chores. Gul Hassan spoke in depth to his mother about his desire to continue the noble tradition of the family by studying Islam. He feared if he were not given the opportunity to study, his life would be wasted. His mother was deeply moved by his passion for knowledge and decided to enroll him in Hadrat Sahib's madrasa. Both mother and son paid a visit to the president of the mosque committee. He treated them with great respect as they were Sayyids and said to Gul Hassan's mother, "Why did you take the trouble? You should have sent me a message and that would have been enough." The committee met on Sundays to enroll any new students. At this stage, the committee was only able to provide free education and lodging for the students. However, a generous Sangi volunteered to give the food. When Gul Hassan came to enroll, the committee had run out of food volunteers, and so he was refused a place. As it had taken him considerable effort to persuade his mother to let him study, Gul Hassan was devastated. In despair, he began crying as he felt he would never get an opportunity to study. A local, illiterate Sangi felt pity for him and told the committee not to send him back. He assured them that whatever simple food he and his family ate, he would share it with Gul Hassan. Another Sangi, who was tall, noticed that Gul Hassan's clothes were in shreds, and so he took off his long shirt and handed it over to Gul Hassan. Since the Sayyid was of medium height, the shirt ran down to his ankles. Thus far, Gul Hassan had not met Hadrat Sahib. However, one day as he came near the mosque, a young shepherd girl informed him that Hadrat Sahib had just arrived. Overjoyed with this news, Gul Hassan quickly ran to the mosque and made ablution. Meanwhile, he noticed Hadrat Sahib had walked into a small room. After performing ablution, he went into the small chamber and saw Hadrat Sahib with his trusted companion Muhammad Ashraf. When he entered, they both stood up to greet Gul Hassan. Hadrat Sahib was informed that his father was a pious person, and he commented, "Now that a Sayyid has joined the ranks of our students, it shall be blessed." Throughout Islamic history, the superiority of the genealogical lineage of our Prophet has been well documented. The eminence of the progeny of our Prophet is such that wherever they are, it is as if the Prophet did not see present, because the family carries his pure bloodline. As a result, their presence brings immense blessings to wherever they reside or travel to. Additionally, all Muslims have been instructed to hold on to Sayyids. In a hadith narrated by Imam at-Tirmidhi, our Prophet says, "I am leaving among you that which, if you hold fast to it, you will never go astray after I am gone, and one of the two is greater than the other. The Book of God, the Holy Quran, which is a rope extended from heaven to earth, and my family, the people of my household. These two will never be separated until they come to me on the day. So watch how you deal with them after I am gone." Primary School. In 1961, the mosque committee was summoned by Hadrat Sahib to Jhelum. Hadrat Sahib was concerned that there was no primary school in the vicinity, and therefore the mosque students were unable to obtain an academic education. Hadrat Sahib stated that it was unacceptable that a person memorized the Holy Quran yet remained illiterate. He suggested that residents should build a high-quality primary school in the Kotli region, and the government would provide the teacher. Hadrat Sahib made a personal donation of 1,000 rupees towards the cost of the project and instructed the residents to raise the remaining cost among the local people. Hadrat Sahib wanted to educate people so that they could play a significant role in all walks of life. Due to Hadrat Sahib's inspiration, a primary school was built near the madrasa, and a Sanghi named Ali Dad was appointed as a teacher. Mujadidi Sahib. Munir Hussain Butt, who died in 2017, was born in Kotli and worked in Mirpur as a Division Inspector of Education. He lived near Hadrat Sahib but had never met him. One of his employees, Ali Dad, was a Sanghi, but Munir Hussain was critical of peers, who were sheikhs or spiritual masters, and sometimes made comments that greatly upset Ali Dad. One day in the year 1968, Munir Hussain was at home in Kotli when suddenly he was overcome with depression. He went for a walk and visited the local primary school in Agar, where Ali Dad worked as a teacher. Ali Dad was surprised to see Munir Hussain and informed him that Hadrat Sahib had just arrived. Surprisingly, Munir Hussain wanted to meet Hadrat Sahib, but Ali Dad stated it was not possible as he was not meeting anyone that day, and a few prominent people had already been turned away. Munir Hussain was determined to meet Hadrat Sahib, so he walked towards the small mosque alongside Ali Dad. They saw Hadrat Sahib's assistant, Muhammad Ashraf, who inquired, "But, Sahib, what are you doing here?" Munir Hussain replied he desired to meet Hadrat Sahib, to which Muhammad Ashraf said, "It is not possible today." However, he then quickly added, "Just wait 1 minute," and went into Hadrat Sahib's room before returning to say, "Hadrat Sahib said it is 11:15 now, and he shall meet you at 11 o'clock. In the meantime, walk to the crossing and come back." At 11 o'clock, Munir Hussain returned to the mosque. Muhammad Ashraf pointed towards a simply dressed slim figure, but Munir Hussain disregarded the indication as he thought it was a student of Hadrat Sahib. He was expecting an image of a sheikh who was overweight and dressed in lavish clothes. Muhammad Ashraf informed him that the simply dressed man walking past was in fact Hadrat Sahib. Munir Hussain apologized for his ignorance and then went into a simple room in which Hadrat Sahib sat. He greeted Hadrat Sahib, who already knew about him from the Sanghis, even though they had never met. In 1966, during his stay in Ahmad Jan's mosque, Hadrat Sahib was informed that Munir Hussain had an accident in which he hurt his hand. Hence, Hadrat Sahib began the conversation with that incident. "I am a useless person. I found out about your accident but was unable to visit you. I used to inquire about your health every day." Hadrat Sahib then inquired as to why he had come. Munir Hussain answered, "I have not come for children, job or wealth. I am a lost soul who needs guidance." Hadrat Sahib remained quiet for a while and then replied, "You are the first person to come to us with such a request." After the short meeting, Munir Hussain asked permission to leave before Hadrat Sahib commented, "If you wish to contact us, it is better to write a letter, as I am constantly on the move, and you might be disappointed if I am not at home." Hadrat Sahib instructed him to visualize the name of God in his heart. As time progressed, Munir Hussain became known as Mujaddidi Sahib and was one of the most trusted and dedicated Sanghis. Hadrat Sahib appointed him as head of the literary activities. Over many years, Hadrat Sahib dictated detailed accounts of his father and the Sanghis to Mujaddidi Sahib, which were published as Tazkira-e-Sultaniyya, and then later translated into English by myself, the author, as The Biography of Qibla Alam. Professor Sahib. Akbar Dad, born the 6th of September 1939 in Kotli, was an educated young man who had heard about Hadrat Sahib but never had the opportunity to meet him. In July 1960, Hadrat Sahib appointed a young man named Ghulam Hussain as the imam of the mosque in the village of Akbar Dad. He was informed that Hadrat Sahib would personally attend the meeting to appoint a committee to manage the mosque. Akbar Dad was excited, as such events were uncommon in the area. During the meeting, he sat at the back and keenly observed the procedure by which the committee was formed. Hadrat Sahib was given a pen and a paper before the local Sanghis requested that he appoint the office bearers. In response, Hadrat Sahib asked them to choose the management committee, as most of the office bearers were middle-aged men. Hadrat Sahib inquired, "Is there a young, educated person in the area?" Akbar Dad's name was mentioned, and he was given the role of secretary. After selecting the management committee, Hadrat Sahib left. Although a clean-shaven young man, yet practicing Muslim renowned for his knowledge and honesty, Akbar Dad had little contact with Hadrat Sahib. Over many years, he grew closer to Hadrat Sahib, and during the 1980s, he became an integral part of the management committee in Dazgah Sharif. It seems that Akbar Dad was being prepared for the significant role he would play in the literary output of Hadrat Sahib. A treasurer, personal secretary, and principal of educational activities, Akbar Dad performed numerous duties. He would even answer the letters that were sent to Hadrat Sahib, and was it due to his efforts that several volumes of the letters were published in Urdu. Hadrat Sahib dictated many important matters to him, which he painstakingly preserved. In addition to collecting the letters of Hadrat Sahib, he also gathered the weekly notices that were written for the benefit of the Sanghis, partially translated into English under counsels from Al-Firdous. The future generations of Sanghis in rural and urban areas owe an enormous debt to these sincere and conscientious people, by whose efforts much excellent works was carried out.